Today we are talking about yoga philosophy, and I'm here with Devyani, one of our beautiful teachers at the studios, and you teach philosophy on our yoga teacher training. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nova. I'm so happy to be here and talk about all things yoga and everything that I love about philosophy of yoga.
Yes, so what does yoga philosophy mean to you?
That's a very good question. Well, something that I think a lot of people miss is that philosophy yoga is not just one single system. It's actually a culmination of different kinds of philosophy, a lot of different latent, inherent philosophies. And some of the things that, we talk about in philosophy yoga, especially the training, include the Ashtanga philosophy of yoga, which has been mentioned so beautifully in Patanjali's yoga system. And we talk about the Bhagavad Gita. We dive into different aspects of what yoga practice is and, different kinds of yoga practice. So there is different paths to achieving that state of blissfulness, that state of union with the self. And then we actually dive into what is the self, understanding those concepts, understanding the Sankhya philosophy, which sometimes I think is missed out. A lot of the times we don't really understand what is the self, and it becomes like a very complicated question.
Very complicated, huge question.
And so there are so many different systems. And then, of course, very popularly we talk about the chakra system. We talk about the energetic channels, the nadi within. And there's so much more that we dive into. And I think it's very important to do that because as yoga is a whole, system of union, the very definition of yoga is yuj, union. Even the philosophy is that it's a way to unite different kinds of things together and really carry forward what resonates with you, what becomes your practice and your journey, perhaps not just on the mat, but even off the mat.
And what does that look like off the mat? We hear that in classes, there are different, 8 limbs of yoga that teachers might theme their classes around, or ideas of how to take philosophy off the mat.
That's such a beautiful question. This is so interesting because I think for me, when I have been studying yoga philosophy for so long, I think as a practitioner myself, as a sadhak myself, from my personal experience, I've carried so many things off the mat. For example, when we talk about, as you said, the 8 limbs, and there's so much of that philosophy of ahimsa, non-violence, coming to yourself with love, coming to others with love from a point of view or an intention of complete non-harming. And those kind of, practices, those kind of tools have actually brought me to understanding yoga a lot more as not just a practice, but a way of life. And I think when people ask me, what is yoga for you? I actually, of course, there are so many beautiful definitions and interpretations that every guru, every teacher will bring, and there's so much more information online. But for me as a practitioner, I think yoga and its philosophy, its practice, is summed up in 2 questions to ask yourself: what and how? So what would I like to receive? What would I like to do for others? What can I do for others? What can I do for myself to self-improve? And then how I do it. What's the intention behind it? How can I do this lovingly? How can I do this with kindness? How can I do it gently and softly? Because when I start asking myself those questions, it becomes like a universal love language with the self. And when you carry that forward with yourself, it goes on to others. It goes on to every action, every thought, every relationship. And I think that's truly the beauty of understanding the philosophy of yoga.
So beautiful. I love those questions. Is that what you ask yourself when you get on the mat?
That's truly, yes. And sometimes, I'll be honest, it's very hard because, there are so many things going on. There's so much external noise. And I think when we come onto the mat, it's almost like, this is my favorite analogy. When the computer is not working, for example, when you've got the screen going off, it's a system overload, what's the first thing we do?
Unplug it.
There we go. We unplug it. And I think that's what the yoga practice is as well. When you take that, or when you carve that time out for yourself to land into slowness, into a space of a little bit more stillness, you're basically unplugging yourself. And I think this body is a machinery. It's this wonderful, intricate machinery of so many things going on together. And it needs a little unplugging and plugging back in. And so that first unplugging itself, I think, is the very, very big answer to the what and how that you can do for yourself.
That's a lovely analogy. I like that one. So yoga philosophy on the teacher training is often a highlight for the students. They often have these huge aha moments, these really big awakenings of themselves, of who they want and what they want. How do you I see the students evolve through that?
I think as much as it's a highlight for other students, it's such a big highlight for me, especially seeing students, resonate with something, have that bit of that sparkle in their minds and really see something that has landed for them. And I think sharing from my experience, I think the most beautiful moments are that we end up sharing a lot of vulnerabilities at the training, a lot of moments of, difficulties, challenges that everyone goes through. Life is, this big, wonderful roller coaster ride. There'll be lots of climbing up, lots of falling downs. And that's when I think at the training, we find how there are these beautiful, beautiful tools available to us to carry forward with us off the mat in those times of challenges. For example, the simplest tool is the breath. If we just take that moment to land in a very difficult situation and something is going on, everyone's in a rush, you might be at the hospital, you might be in a stress at work, you might be going through such a difficult moment. If you just take a little pause, a deep breath in, let it pause, let a sigh out. That simplistic tool, take 3 breaths like that, and then find your space to make a decision for yourself. Even things like, we might get in a fight with our partner, we might get in a fight with our loved ones, conflicts happen, of course. We're yogis doesn't mean that we're calm all the time. Of course, things happen to us as well. We're all human. And just being able to come to any situation with that simplistic thought of, I'm steady, I am balanced. Within me, there's this entire pool of this wonderful ananda, bliss, completely. And that there can be no other way to react to a situation. I think that's where, the philosophy lands, that instead of reacting, we're in that state of actually taking action, karma, in every thought, in every emotion, in every aspect of our being. We're inviting a lot more intention behind it. I think that's where, the philosophy lands a lot more off the mat.
I'm curious because obviously coming from India, here in Australia, in the West, most people come to the yoga practice for a physicality, right? It's a physical practice. I'm curious to know from a personal standpoint, what attracted you to the yoga mat?
That's such a good question because it was the physical practice. It truly was. And the funny thing is, I actually started yoga. In India, we grow up with it. And so it's a part of life. It's something we practice at school. We've grown up, with PE
class?
Yeah, well, in a class, for example, for me, it's at school, we would have the morning assembly and we would all go out into the playground. And everyone would be at the amphitheater in the playground together, whole school, thousands of kids. It's India, of course. And the principal would be standing on a mic. And the first thing we would do is just stand still, close the eyes, take a few breaths together. Thousands of students. And no one said that was yoga. No one told us that. But it was just a part of practice. It was part of daily life.
Were you told what it was?
Not until later when I actually understood what yoga is. So that's how we've grown up. Wow. Yoga has been a part of our life, just as is. With its pranayama practices, with meditation. And I remember this is so beautiful. But again, I have these memories from school growing up that we would be sitting in class and there would be that time of lull in the afternoon that no one wants to really study and everyone's ready for a snooze. And then the PE teacher would start making his rounds. And he would come into every class and he'd be like, let's get up, let's shake some energy out, let's sprinkle some energy out, shed it out, take a few bellows breath, and we were ready to study again. And no one said that was yoga. See, for us, yoga as a practice was always just embedded. It was just something that we all learned, we immersed, we experienced as young kids. It was very much later when actually I moved to Australia and I was doing my master's in finance from Uni Melb, and I was preparing for my final examinations, and this is 1 week before my final exams. And I just had this severe pain along my left arm to a point where I was just unable to move my left arm completely. It was immobile. And there was such pain, and I thought, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack at the age of 24 because it was my left side. And I was in a panic. And I come from a doctor's family, so my mom and dad are doctors. And so I gave them a call, and I start crying in a complete frenzy. And I say to them, I'm dying. And they are, true story. My dad, in this very stern voice, goes like, stop diagnosing. Tell me your symptoms. So I stop panicking, I take a few breaths, and I tell him what's going on. And he says to me, okay, this sounds like a pinched nerve, and I think this is cervical spondylitis. So these are the medicines you need to take. This is what's happening. You need to rest and go for a chest x-ray in the morning. And I remember going to bed and thinking, okay, my entire family knows I love them. I'm loved. So if I don't wake up in the morning, it's okay. And that was the thought process behind everything. Anyway, went to the doctor the next day, had a chest x-ray. I had very bad posture. And the doctor here asked me, have you considered doing yoga for your posture? And I started laughing because I had never expected that question. And so for my posture, I started doing yoga. And it was at a time when I was the most unfit. I felt very inconfident about my body. And to me, this was, something that I was going to work on after my exams, after I had gotten a good job that I was hoping to get, after my visa had been, settled and things. So a lot of things were going on. So I had actually put my own health on a little bit of a pause, but my body was like, nope, that can't happen.
That's crazy.
So that's how I started yoga, with the physical aspect of it. And little by little, my 5 to 10 minutes of physical practice, which was very gentle movement to begin with, became a full practice of, let's say, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, bit by bit. I started getting a lot more confident in what my body could do, because the body can do such amazing things only if we give it the time, love, and care that it needs.
And was the philosophy embedded as well as a child?
That's such a wonderful question. From India, coming from that background of growing up with so many people who are rooted in devotion, who are rooted in the busyness of life, because when you put a lot of people in one subcontinent, it's messy. It is chaos. And as someone who's grown up in that chaos, truly it is a magic that we can allow ourselves that grounding space to land in our own presence, in other people's presence, and come to everything with that light, that lightness of being. I'll be very honest, it's very difficult. Things in India, there are so many people, there's so much going on, there's so much that you see, you acknowledge, and then there are parts of your heart that are crying to help, and still coming to a place from complete and utmost, sense of love. I think that's what has been a part of growing up in the capital of yoga.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful story, and so nice to hear. If you haven't been to Devyani's classes, I promise you they are just divine, just as you are. You just have so much heart and soul that you give in your classes and on the teacher training in the philosophy aspect. So thank you for sharing today.
Thank you so much, Nova.
Thank you.
Namaste.
If you loved today's episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share with your friends. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, visit warrior1yoga.com.au and follow us on socials. We'll see you on the yoga mat.